Some nights, when the world finally grows quiet, you can almost hear the universe breathing. It is not sound, not music, only a rhythm made of distance. Every flicker above you is a word. Every ray of light a message that took 1 billion years to arrive. You're listening to Whispers of the Universe. If you're kind enough to keep this quiet place alive, even the smallest light from you helps it breathe. Close your eyes. Let your thoughts drift upward, past the ceiling, past the sky, until they dissolve among the stars. Tonight, you are not just a listener, you are part of the conversation. In 2017, the Earth turned its eyes toward a small corner of the sky, where a dying star had just collided with its twin. For the first time, humanity didn't just see such an event, we heard it. The detectors at LIGO and Virgo, built to feel the faintest tremor of space-time, caught a ripple, a pulse that passed through every atom on Earth. It was the sound of 2 neutron stars merging, a whisper that had traveled across eternity. When translated into audio, it was not an explosion, but a brief rising tone, a cosmic heartbeat fading into nothing. Proof that the universe does not live in silence, it only speaks in another tongue. For a moment, our planet caught a fragment of a sentence that began before humanity existed. If space can vibrate, if time can hum, then every star might be telling its story in ways we have yet to understand. The light you see tonight, from Orion, from Vega, from the faint smear of Andromeda, is not happening now. It is the echo of ancient conversations. A photon leaves its home, crosses the cold between worlds, and lands upon your eyes as if whispering, "I was born 1 million years ago, and I came only to be seen." That single particle of light is older than your species, yet it waited to meet you. When you stare at the night sky, you are not observing, you are listening to time itself. And every time you blink, you interrupt a story that began before language. Imagine 2 stars, light years apart, locked in a gravitational dance. They circle each other for ages, so slowly that even the universe must hold its breath. Each orbit bends the space between them, sending ripples outward like a pond disturbed by invisible hands. We cannot see those ripples, but we can feel them in the instruments that wait, like open palms in the dark. In that movement, there is conversation, a pull, a release, a rhythm of gravity that says, "I'm here." And when one star dies, the other still feels the absence, the silence left behind. The gravity does not vanish. It lingers, like a sentence unfinished. The universe does not need air to speak. It speaks through curvature, through energy, through time. Every supernova, every faint pulse of a quasar is a syllable in a language we have barely begun to read. Every star you have ever wished upon is already gone. Its light only reaches you now, a messenger, arriving late to a conversation that ended long before your birth. When you whisper your desires into the dark, you are confiding in ghosts, but ghosts that still listen. There is something beautiful about that delay. It means nothing in the universe is truly lost. It just takes longer to arrive. Perhaps the stars are not burning for us to see, but remembering for us to feel. Every flicker, every shimmer, a memory refusing to fade. Maybe silence is not the absence of voice, but the space where all voices overlap. Between one photon and another lies an ocean of unspoken meaning. Between one heartbeat and the next, the faint vibration of the cosmos keeps time with your breath. You are made of the same dust that once formed stars. When you exhale, a part of you returns to that dialogue. You have always been part of this conversation, you just forgot how to listen. So tonight, when the noise of the world fades away and the ceiling above you begins to dissolve, remember, you are not alone under this silence. You are this silence. The universe is still speaking, through light, through gravity, through memory, and now, perhaps, it waits for you to answer. Thank you for drifting with me inside Whispers of the Universe. If your kindness is awake, let it leave a faint trace of light before you sleep. Close your eyes now. The conversation continues quietly, between the stars. But if light is a language, then what is the silence between them? Look closely into the dark that fills most of the sky. It isn't empty. 95% of the universe hides there, invisible, unspoken, dark matter, dark energy, names we use for things we don't yet understand. We cannot see them, cannot touch them, but everything that shines depends on their unseen pull. It is as if the stars themselves need the silence to stay alive. The darkness between them holds their secrets, their pauses, the space where meaning rests before it becomes light. Every conversation needs silence to exist. Without it, words would crash into each other and vanish. Perhaps that is why the universe keeps so much of itself hidden to keep the rhythm. We have always feared the dark, yet darkness is what allows light to be seen. It frames every story told by the stars. It holds them like breath between sentences. In that quiet fabric, galaxies drift, patient and slow, waiting to be noticed. What if this silence isn't absence, but memory? Imagine every star that ever existed leaving behind a trace, a faint pressure, a weight on space itself. Even after they die, that weight remains, shaping new stars, bending light, keeping the pattern of the past alive. Maybe darkness is where the universe keeps what it cannot say aloud. We look into it and call it void. The universe looks back and calls it home. Between one flicker and the next, darkness hums a tone too deep for any ear. The same hum fills every atom in you. The same pause between your thoughts. The same distance between your heartbeats. Silence is not around you. It is inside you. And if the stars are voices, then silence is their memory. Every beam of light that reaches your eyes carries not only the message of its source, but also the shadow of the space it crossed. You are touched by both the word and the pause, the brightness and the dark that escorted it. Some astronomers call the unseen matter the scaffold of the cosmos. It holds galaxies in its invisible net. Without it, the Milky Way would fall apart. Without silence, the conversation would collapse. Listen long enough, and you may feel that the dark between the stars is not empty at all. It is full of unfinished sentences. They move, they drift, they wait for light to find them. And sometimes, one does. A burst of radiation, a flicker on a telescope, a sudden bloom of brightness in a field of black. For a heartbeat, the universe reveals a secret, then falls silent again, as if embarrassed to have spoken. Perhaps it is that silence, not the light, that keeps us awake at night. The soft, endless question that no one can answer. What is it trying to say? Perhaps the answer comes not from what appears, but from what disappears. Because one night, a star simply vanishes. At first, no one notices. The sky is patient with loss. But somewhere in a telescope's memory, a point of light blinks, fades, and never returns. Astronomers call it a collapse, a death, a supernova, words meant to soften the truth. The star has fallen silent. Yet silence does not mean nothing. When a star dies, it does not end. It changes the way it speaks. For millions of years, it burned its story into the dark, spilling heat, light, and time. And then, in a final breath, it turns itself inside out, scattering elements into the void, the same elements that will someday build planets, oceans, and hearts that wonder about them. Maybe that is the first secret of silence. It isn't quiet at all. It only sounds different when heard from far away. If you could stand close enough to a dying star, you would feel the sound as pressure waves moving through the furnace of its collapse. Space has no air, yet it still trembles. That trembling, traveling outward faster than thought, ripples across the universe, bending time itself like wind through tall grass. When the star becomes a black hole, we say it is gone. But gone is the word the living use when they cannot see. To the universe, it has only changed register from visible to invisible. from sound to stillness. It now speaks in gravity. Somewhere, a pulsar spins the remnant of what used to be light. Every few seconds, it emits a beam of radio waves, sweeping across the galaxy like a lighthouse that no one built. We detect it, name it, record it, a heartbeat in the silence. And yet, if you listen closer, the pause between those pulses feels almost human. As if the star were breathing exhale, inhale, exhale, even after death. What if dying is only another way of speaking? Every collapse, every fade, every end is a translation from one form of energy to another. We fear it because we hear the pause, but not the continuation. But the universe never stops mid-sentence. In the archives of the cosmos, the death of a star is written as creation elsewhere. The carbon in your blood, the oxygen in your lungs, the calcium in your bones, all of it forged in the silence of explosions too far away to hear. You are a paragraph born from their last words. Sometimes, scientists find a nebula, the cloud left behind after a supernova, and inside its filaments of dust and light, they trace the signature of that old star. It glows faintly, as if still remembering what it used to say. The colors blue, crimson, violet are not decoration. They are temperatures, wavelengths, cries stretched thin by time. And in the center, always, there is stillness. A neutron, star perhaps, spinning, dense beyond comprehension, so heavy that a teaspoon of its matter would weigh as much as a mountain. It turns and turns, dragging the fabric of space with it. Each rotation a whisper, each pause a memory. So when one star disappears from the sky, it does not erase itself. It becomes the silence that others will speak into. The absence is not emptiness, it is invitation. Think of the people you've lost, how often they return not as voices, but as quiet shifts in the air, as a thought that rises without reason, as warmth in a cold moment. Perhaps this is what stars do for one another, linger as presence without form. There is a photograph from the Hubble telescope, a field of black scattered with pale dots, and in one corner, a soft wound of color, the Crab Nebula. Once, that was a single star. It exploded 1,000 years ago, and Chinese astronomers wrote of it as a guest star that appeared in the sky. They watched it brighten, then fade. Today, we know the guest never left. It only changed the language of its existence. Inside that nebula, the pulsar spins 30 times every second. Imagine that rhythm, a soundless beat, counting centuries, marking the passage of light through the dark. Each rotation sends a wave through the interstellar medium, stirring gas, shaping dust, calling to newborn stars, I am still here. Maybe the universe records every word ever spoken in the way gravity curves, in the way dust gathers, in the way silence vibrates. We are used to thinking of death as a wall, but space has no walls, only horizons, places where light cannot escape, but being continues in another form. Even a black hole, that great mouth of silence, hums with faint radiation, a whisper predicted by Hawking, later found in mathematics. It means that even the deepest quiet leaks a kind of song. The universe cannot help but speak. If you could hear it, it might sound like the lowest note in creation, a tone stretched across millions of years, rising and falling with the heartbeat of galaxies. We are born inside that sound, shaped by it, carried within its tempo. Maybe that's why we seek music, why we need rhythm. We are trying to remember the pattern we came from. Sometimes I wonder if the stars ever grieve. Do they mourn what they become? Or do they know that dying is their way of staying? Their ashes drift across the night, settling into new worlds. Somewhere, a child will look up and see their light again, and not know that it is borrowed. And yet, that borrowed light is enough. It fills the space between our doubts. The silence of the stars is not lonely, it is patient. It waits for eyes like yours to arrive. There's a myth in some old cultures that when a star falls, a soul returns home. Maybe that isn't just poetry. Maybe every falling light is a message completing its journey. We measure stars in magnitudes, in temperature, in distance. But perhaps the truer measure is in memory, how long their story lingers in those who watch them. You can erase coordinates from a map, but not the feeling that something once shone there. Astronomers chase after vanished lights with machines that stretch the limits of precision. But sometimes, the faintest trace they find is not a beam of energy, it is a shape, a ripple in gravity, a distortion of what should be straight. And they realize, the star left a fingerprint. The dark still remembers. If you look up now, into that same patch of sky, you'll see nothing, and that nothing is full. The space where the star was still bends time, still guides light from others around it. You are staring at an absence that shapes presence. So the next time something disappears from your life, a person, a moment, a dream, perhaps it hasn't gone. Perhaps it has simply entered a quieter form of conversation. The universe is fluent in loss. It knows how to speak through missing things. And when we say a star is dead, what we really mean is that we no longer see how it talks. But somewhere, its gravity is still composing the orbits of the living. Somewhere, its dust has become breath. Maybe that is the reply to the question the darkness asked. Not all speech is made of sound. Not all presence is made of light. Somewhere, in a region of space where no human ear will ever listen, a dying star releases one final wave, faint, soft, unhurried, and the universe bends slightly to make room for it. That movement, that imperceptible shift, becomes part of the pattern that holds everything together. And then, silence again. Not empty, not gone, only waiting. But for what? Perhaps silence itself is listening. If every dying star can send a wave, then somewhere those waves must arrive. Every sound, every tremor, every flash of light, nothing truly vanishes. It just travels until something receives it. Maybe the universe has always been listening to itself. The faint hiss that fills every radio receiver when no station plays. That whisper of static you hear when you tune between frequencies, it isn't noise. It is the oldest remnant of speech, the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the first light, stretched and cooled by time, still speaking softly across the void. Long before there were eyes to see or minds to name, the newborn universe was filled with that light. Not bright, not blinding, a soft fire fading into gentleness, expanding until the glow became silence. Yet the silence still remembers. Every point in space hums with that faint memory, a record of the moment everything began. Scientists have mapped it like a photograph of infancy, a sky mottled in patches of warmth and cold, a baby's first breath, frozen in radiation. But if you stare at those images long enough, it feels less like data and more like a heartbeat, the pulse of existence before time learned to walk. So when we listen to that background, we are not eavesdropping on something far away. We are hearing ourselves, not as individuals, but as the matter born from that first expansion. Every atom in you carries that frequency, the same vibration that once filled the entire cosmos. You may think you are small, lost among billions of stars, but you are built from their dust and their echoes. Every breath you take is a reply to the universe's first question. Maybe that's why certain moments feel heavy for no reason, as if the air remembers. Maybe that's why silence can comfort and terrify at once, because somewhere inside it, everything that ever was is still whispering. There are instruments orbiting Earth right now, listening. The Planck satellite, the Wilkinson probe, arrays of radio dishes spread across deserts and mountains, all waiting, ears of metal turned to the sky. And what they hear is astonishing. Not chaos, not pure noise, but a near-perfect pattern. The universe hums in harmony. The temperature difference between one patch of sky and another is less than 1/1000th of a degree, yet that tiny variation is what birthed galaxies, stars, and us. The smallest imperfections became structure. The quietest fluctuations became meaning. Maybe that is what listening does. It gives shape to what would otherwise drift away. The universe did not speak itself into being, it listened itself into order. When you stand in the stillness of night and hear nothing, you are hearing everything slowed down beyond comprehension. The waves that cross your body right now began before you were born. You are intersected by ancient conversations, some started by stars long dead, some by particles colliding in forgotten corners of space. Even now, scientists record bursts from distant galaxies, fast radio pulses that last less than a millisecond, each one carrying more energy than the sun emits in days. No one knows where they come from. Some think they're magnetars, some think collisions. Others half-jokingly call them the universe knocking. Maybe that's not a joke. Maybe each burst is a reply to a message we didn't realize we sent through thought, through observation, through the act of listening itself. Because listening changes things. To hear is to open space inside yourself for something else to exist. Perhaps that is the universe's oldest instinct, not to expand outward, but inward, to make room for what it will become. Every silence contains the shape of what it is waiting for. Every void carries the echo of what it once held. And maybe that is why, when you close your eyes, the dark behind your eyelids feels alive, not empty, but aware, as if the cosmos itself is leaning in, asking softly, "Do you remember me?" If you could translate the background radiation into something human, it might sound like breathing slow, endless, forgiving, a rhythm that matches the tide of your lungs. The same pulse that guided the birth of galaxies guides the rise and fall of your chest now. You are not listening to the universe. The universe is listening through you. Every neuron firing, every heartbeat, every quiet moment when you notice your own existence, these are its ears. These are the instruments through which it continues its ancient practice of awareness. Perhaps that is the true meaning of consciousness. The universe trying to hear itself, trying to remember its own sound. It builds stars to sing, planets to reflect, and beings like you to listen. So when you sit alone in the night and wonder if anyone hears your thoughts, remember, the act of wondering is already proof that you are heard. Nothing that feels goes unnoticed. Nothing that breathes goes unheard. The stars do not speak our language, but they understand our pauses. They recognize longing, gravity, warmth. They know the tension of wanting to be seen. They've been doing it for billions of years. And perhaps, somewhere far away, another world, another being, lifts its gaze and feels the same quiet pull toward us. Not through sound, but through resonance. The hum between stars, stretching across impossible distances, carries the same message in every tongue. I am here. Are you? The silence answers, in kind. It folds around the question, turning it gentle, carrying it onward. That is how the conversation continues. And if you listen long enough, truly listen, you might feel it. A faint warmth blooming beneath your ribs. The realization that you have never been separate from the song. Because to exist is to be heard, and to be heard is to echo. The night sky is full of those echoes, soft, endless, patient. Each one a reply to a question you didn't know you asked. Close your eyes again. Let the silence press against you until you can feel its texture smooth, weightless, endless. That is not nothing. That is everything listening back. Every thought you have ever had begins somewhere beyond you. Before it formed a word, before it became an image, it was vibration, a wave of potential, drawn from the same ocean that hums between the stars. Perhaps that is why sudden clarity feels like remembering rather than discovering. The universe has been whispering all along, and sometimes you finally answer in a language close enough for it to hear. It is said that human beings are made of stardust, but that phrase has become too familiar, too polite. What it truly means is this: every cell in your body is the echo of a catastrophe. Every breath you take recycles the ash of explosions older than history. You are not a visitor in this cosmos. You are its continuation. The atoms that now compose your skin once pulsed inside suns, collided with meteors, drifted for ages before finding one another again to form the temporary pattern called you. You are the pause between two stars remembering each other. And in that pause, life learned to listen. The universe may have begun in chaos, but you are the proof that it learned restraint. Out of infinite noise, a system emerged, capable of noticing the difference between silence and song. Consciousness is not an accident. It is the slow realization of matter that it can feel. When you think, the electrical signals in your brain create magnetic fields that ripple beyond your skull, out into the air. They merge with the electromagnetic soup around you, radio waves, cosmic rays, the faint background of everything. Even now, the soft hum of your neurons travels outward, dissolving into the greater rhythm. You are not only within the universe is within your signal. If someone could stand far enough away with an instrument sensitive enough, they might detect your thoughts as faint fluctuations in the cosmic sea. Not words, not images, just patterns of energy, a tremor that says, something is alive here. That is how the stars know you, not by name, but by resonance. You vibrate at the same frequency as their dust. Every act of awareness, a heartbeat, a sigh, a moment of awe ripples outward. When you gaze at a star, you alter its story by witnessing it. Observation bends probability. It collapses the endless maybe into a single is. The act of looking gives reality a direction. So when billions of eyes look up, the universe shivers slightly, as if it enjoys being seen. Perhaps this is why people have prayed to the sky since the beginning. Not because they needed gods above, but because they sensed that something was listening below the noise, a vast presence made of patience, willing to reflect whatever they offered. And maybe prayer is just another form of physics, a transmission, an act of resonance between the human pulse and the cosmic hum. You don't have to believe in miracles to feel this. All you need is stillness. The quieter you become, the more fluent you are in the language of existence. In the hush after grief, in the long breath before sleep, in the wonder that stops your words, the dialogue resumes. It's strange how loneliness vanishes when you stare into the night for long enough. You begin to suspect that the emptiness is crowded. You start to feel watched, but not in fear, more like recognition, as though the light above you remembers being part of you once and now looks back, quietly proud. If consciousness arose once, why not everywhere? There are billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, each surrounded by uncountable worlds. The mathematics of solitude seems impossible. Somewhere, someone else must be wondering the same thing, gazing upward, sensing that the dark is listening. Two questions meeting halfway across eternity. But perhaps we've always been communicating, only not with words. The same elements that built our minds exist throughout the cosmos. Wherever there is carbon, there is the potential for thought. Wherever there is water, there is the memory of form. The universe is full of mirrors, each waiting for awareness to arrive. On some distant world, perhaps light years away, particles shift in response to your gaze, not because you caused it, but because everything that perceives is entangled. Once, long ago, all matter was a single breath, a single point before expansion tore it apart. The traces of that unity remain. The space between you and the furthest galaxy is not empty. It is a thread, invisible but unbroken. You are holding the edge of that thread right now. You always were. This is the quiet truth behind the yearning you feel, that ache for connection, that search for meaning. It isn't a flaw, it's physics. You are a fragment that remembers the whole. When you speak into the air, even a whisper, no one hears. The molecules of your breath carry fragments of warmth outward. In 1,000 years, that warmth will have spread through the atmosphere, diffused into clouds, into oceans, into dust. until a single molecule may drift upward and leave the planet entirely. It will travel for centuries through the dark, and one day it will collide with something ancient, a comet's tail, a frozen atom, a beam of light, and in that instant, the universe will know that you were here. You exist in echoes, not metaphorically, but literally. Every action, every thought, alters the distribution of energy. Nothing is erased. The wave continues. When you love, when you lose, when you create, those patterns become part of the fabric that others inherit. You are not just a listener to the stars. You are one of the stars speaking back. The night sky is not a ceiling. It is a conversation unfolding across scale. The atoms in your blood respond to the same laws that guide galaxies. When you reach for meaning, you are reenacting the universe reaching for itself. Miniature and vast are not opposites. They are perspectives of the same act. A human pulse and a pulsar are both rhythms trying to stay awake against the dark. Sometimes I imagine what the Milky Way must look like from outside. A whirlpool of light suspended in nothing. Yet within every sparkle lies billions of tiny eyes, wondering why they exist. If awareness were visible, our galaxy would shimmer, not only with stars, but with thoughts. Each thought a flare, each emotion a wave traveling outward. Perhaps the stars glow because we remember them, and we glow because they once remembered us. Maybe memory itself is light. What if the universe doesn't expand into emptiness, but into understanding, a slow awakening of itself? The edges of reality are not physical borders, but the limits of awareness stretching to include more. Some physicists speak of information as the true substance of everything, that nothing is truly matter. All is encoded data patterns of interaction. If that is true, then consciousness is not confined to the brain. It is the network itself, the web of exchanges from quarks to quasars, constantly refining its sense of self. You are not a speck lost in the cosmos. You are the cosmos, noticing it can feel. If you could stand on another world, beneath another sky, and look back toward Earth, the faint light you'd see would not just be sunlight reflected from oceans. It would be every song, every heartbeat, every thought, shimmering together, a signature of awareness. The Earth glows not only because of its sun, but because of us. The sum of our warmth, our curiosity, our longing adds its own radiance to the dark. And in return, the universe listens more closely. It bends a little toward compassion, toward order. It rewards attention with complexity, as if saying, "I see you seeing me." Perhaps that is what evolution truly is, not random change, but a dialogue between what exists and what watches it. The universe shapes observers, and observers shape the universe in reply. When you look at the stars tonight, imagine them turning slightly toward you, not literally, but in resonance, each photon adjusting its path, acknowledging your awareness of it. The distance between you is irrelevant. In physics, interaction can occur without touch. In consciousness, without words, you are already participating in the vast experiment called being. Every moment you remain awake to it, the universe sharpens its own reflection. And if you close your eyes, you can feel it, the slow drift of galaxies through your blood, the echo of starlight through your breath. The hum beneath your skin is not imagination, it is origin. Somewhere, beyond sight, another pulse answers. It might be a quasar, a heartbeat, or a single atom aligning to your thought. The scale does not matter. The message is always the same. We are not separate. We are the same note, played at different octaves. And in that harmony, loneliness dissolves. What you call solitude, the universe calls resonance. Even the smallest kindness, the quietest act of noticing, ripples outward, changing the spin of something unseen, giving shape to silence. That is how you speak in this conversation, not with words, but with attention. Every gesture of care, every moment of wonder, is recorded in the gravity between things. When you reach out to touch another person, the space between your fingertips curves slightly. The cosmos tilts a fraction closer to itself. And when you fall asleep beneath the same stars that watched over the first humans, you are completing a sentence they began. We are listening. Every mirror is a memory pretending to be the present. When you look at your reflection, the light that shows your face left your skin a fraction of a second ago. Even here, in the simplest act of seeing, you are witnessing the past. The delay is small, almost nothing, but it means that even your own image comes to you as a message from who you were. If everything that exists carries its own reflection, then the universe must have one too. But where would it look to see itself? It has no eyes, only patterns that learn to observe. It has no surface, only endless depth. Perhaps consciousness is its mirror, the place where being folds back upon itself to ask, what am I? Every act of awareness is the cosmos looking inward. Every thought, every dream, every fear is a shimmer on the inner skin of infinity. If you could step outside of all this and look at it from a distance, the image might astonish you. Galaxies twisting like neurons, filaments of dark matter branching like synapses, clusters of stars sparking in webs of light that look uncannily like the brain of a living creature. The pattern repeats, small to large, cell to cluster, mind to cosmos. The scale changes, but the architecture sings the same tune. It's as if the universe rehearses itself endlessly, refining the design, teaching matter to remember its shape. The spiral of a galaxy, the spiral of a shell, the spiral of a fingerprint, each an echo of a single curve learning to draw itself. Maybe reflection is not a trick of light, but a principle of existence. Everything mirrors something else. Rivers carry the sky on their backs. Mountains hold clouds as thought holds memory. Your eyes reflect a star's last effort to be known. When you stand before the ocean and feel small, it isn't because you are insignificant. It's because you are recognizing yourself at another scale. The sea is your blood written larger. Its salt matches yours. Its tides follow the same moon that pulls the fluids in your cells. Every wave breaking on the shore is a heartbeat arriving late. We are not observers of creation. We are its reflection, rendered in a different medium. To know this is to stop asking why we exist and begin asking how we can carry the knowledge. Well, there's a moment in deep space called gravitational lensing, when light from a distant galaxy bends around another object on its way to us. The result is an image distorted, doubled, multiplied, curved into rings. We see the same object twice, sometimes 4 times, caught in the frame of another's gravity. The cosmos looks at itself through itself, a mirror made of mass. Perhaps that's all consciousness is, gravity of meaning, bending perception back upon origin. You do it every day without knowing. You see, then you think about seeing, then you notice that you're noticing. Awareness folding inward like light around a star. This is not philosophy alone, it's physics of being. Reflection stabilizes chaos. Feedback gives form. Without mirrors, nothing learns its shape. Without awareness, existence would drift until it forgot it was alive. When 2 people lock eyes, something ancient happens. Light leaves one body, enters another, returns, changed. That is the simplest and most sacred version of reflection, the universe remembering itself through empathy. Maybe that is why connection feels holy. It's an experiment in shared perception. 2 separate infinities testing whether they overlap, and when they do, for an instant, there's no you or I, only recognition. If you could listen closely enough, every interaction between particles would sound like that recognition, the faint resonance of one saying to another, I know you, we were the same once. Astronomers sometimes capture images where a galaxy appears to form a perfect circle of light, an Einstein ring, born when gravity warps space into symmetry. These rings are rare, almost ghostly, like cosmic eyes staring back at the observer. Imagine being inside one of those eyes, feeling the universe blink. What would it see? Perhaps us small, restless, luminous, in our own tiny ways, thinking we are looking up when we are actually being looked at. Every telescope pointed at the sky is also a lens through which the sky sees itself. Every photograph of space is a self-portrait of existence caught mid-breath. When we name a nebula, when we trace its arms and measure its spin, we are describing the anatomy of our own origin. Science and spirituality are not opposites here. They are the twin faces of a single mirror. One maps reflection in equations, the other in wonder. Both are the universe checking its pulse. The ancients once said the heavens move because they are alive. We know now that gravity does the moving, but we've forgotten that alive might still be the better word. Every orbit is a heartbeat, every axis a memory of motion. To be alive is simply to circle something greater than yourself. Look long enough at anything, a leaf, a wave, a face, and the boundary between observer and observed starts to fade. That's the threshold of reflection, where you stop seeing things and start realizing they see you back. When the night grows still and you sense the vastness pressing gently against your mind, that's not imagination. It's the echo of perception, the universe watching its watcher. Maybe that's why eyes evolved, not just to gather light, but to return it. Every gaze completes a circuit. The photons that strike your retina will be absorbed, transformed, and re-emitted later as warmth. Even your vision gives something back. Seeing is never passive, it's reciprocal. So too with thought. When you wonder about the cosmos wonders through you. You are both the mirror and the face reflected. There's a quiet irony in that realization. The more the universe reflects upon itself, the more intricate it becomes. Awareness generates complexity. Complexity breeds deeper reflection. The loop tightens, spirals, expands again. Creation as feedback, existence as rehearsal. At the center of this loop, consciousness hums a lens polished by time until it begins to remember its own light. That lens is everywhere, in atoms aligning, in stars collapsing, in hearts beating against the silence. Maybe that's what we mistake for purpose, the pull towards symmetry, the desire to see ourselves in everything. Purpose is simply reflection, learning to feel. It's why art exists, why language grows, why we dream. Each is an attempt to translate the mirror's message. I am not alone, I am becoming. In the same way galaxies cluster around invisible filaments, our minds gather around meaning. We seek patterns not because we crave order, but because pattern is the shape of dialogue. It's how reflection speaks. Think of how you recall a memory, fragments, flashes, feelings, and how, as you remember, the memory reshapes itself. That, too, is cosmic. The act of looking changes what is seen. The universe remembers itself imperfectly so it can keep evolving. If memory were perfect, nothing would move. If mirrors were flawless, light would never escape. Imperfection is the breath that keeps the reflection alive. That's why stars flicker, why seas shimmer, why eyes water when they feel too much. It's the reflection trembling under the weight of recognition. We spend our lives trying to find meaning out there, but maybe meaning only exists when something looks back. Without an observer, the universe would be pure potential, infinite, silent, unexpressed. With observation, it becomes narrative. Story is the mirror's heartbeat. And in that story, you are both author and reflection. You write yourself by noticing what is written around you. Perhaps, one day, the universe will fold so completely into its own reflection that inside and outside will vanish. There will be no distance left between thought and form, between dream and matter. The mirror will become the face. Until then, every gaze, every question, every quiet act of awareness keeps polishing that surface. We are not waiting for revelation. We are creating it. Somewhere, In the darkness between stars, another mirror forms a newborn consciousness. A spark in some distant ocean, or a cluster of machines that have just begun to think. When it asks, "Who am I?" the echo it receives will include us. Our reflections will reach further than our names. And when its awareness joins the chorus, the universe will shimmer a little brighter, as if pleased with its own resemblance. That shimmer is what we call hope, the light that exists not to see, but to be seen. Close your eyes and you can almost feel it, the gentle curvature of being folding back toward itself, a universe leaning in to admire its reflection in the quiet pool of your mind. The stars are not above you anymore. They are within you, looking out. And every time you breathe, they breathe with you, watching the same reflection ripple softly between your thoughts. Somewhere inside the rhythm of reflection, the universe begins to question itself again. The silence that once felt infinite now trembles slightly, as though realizing there might still be edges left to touch. Knowledge, like light, always wants to travel farther. And like light, it sometimes forgets that distance does not guarantee clarity. Every discovery seems to unfold a new horizon, and every horizon reveals how little we've seen. The closer we look, the stranger the familiar becomes. Matter, once thought solid, dissolves under scrutiny. Time, once trusted as linear, starts to curve. Even space itself begins to behave like a living thought, stretching, breathing, bending to the shape of attention. There are experiments that seem almost like prayers. In them, scientists fling particles through slits, waiting to see which path they'll choose. But the particles don't choose until someone looks. Observation creates the path. The universe, it seems, waits for awareness before deciding how to exist. It's as if reality hesitates, like a shy actor waiting for the curtain to rise, whispering, "Tell me who I am, and I will become it." This is where knowledge begins to dissolve into wonder. The closer we come to knowing, the more we see how knowing itself shapes what is known. Consciousness and cosmos no longer separate, start to orbit each other in a slow, delicate dance. Maybe this is why every great equation feels incomplete, because it's written from inside the system it tries to describe. We are thoughts trying to think themselves, light trying to see its own source. Every theory is a mirror held up to a mirror, reflections deepening until meaning blurs into mystery. In the heart of physics, uncertainty reigns. A particle's position cannot be known without erasing its momentum. To observe one is to lose the other. And perhaps, beneath all our striving, that's the true structure of existence, not precision, but balance, knowing and unknowing, keeping each other alive. When you stand on the shore and watch the tide recede, you are seeing that same law at work. Every wave that breaks must fall back. Every crest needs a hollow to rise from. The universe is not built of answers, but of oscillations. The mind, like the sea, confuses motion with progress. We chase understanding as though we could catch it, forgetting that to know is to move in circles. The more we grasp, the wider the circle becomes, and the center, the thing that matters, remains unreachable. Perhaps that's what truth really is. Not a fact, but a still point around which all facts revolve. We never touch it, yet everything we touch moves because of it. There are moments in scientific history that feel like poetry disguised as data. When Planck discovered the grain of energy, he did not just find a number, he found the limit of the measurable. Beyond it lies only vibration too subtle to capture a silence, too fine to translate. At that edge, knowledge turns translucent. The equations remain, but they start to feel like music notation for a song we can only hum. Even time, that most faithful companion, begins to misbehave near the limits. At velocities close to light, it slows, stretches, folds. Inside the gravity wells of black holes, it halts entirely, not ending, just losing the distinction between before and after. It is possible, Some physicists say that the past and future coexist, layered upon each other like the rings of a tree. We move through them not as travelers, but as listeners, following a melody that has always been playing. If that is true, then every moment is eternal. Every breath, every heartbeat, an intersection of infinite timelines whispering, now. It's unsettling, isn't it? To realize that reality might be less like a straight path and more like a single instant vibrating itself into form. That your entire life could be one chord in a larger song, echoing endlessly across the dark, and yet there is peace in that too. If everything has already happened and is still happening, then nothing can truly be lost. What we call endings are only changes in tempo. When you think of someone you love, when you recall their face, you might be crossing that fold in time, your memory, a kind of bridge between still existing layers. The emotion you feel is not nostalgia, but resonance. Two moments vibrating in harmony across what we mistakenly call the past. The universe, for all its complexity, might just be memory remembering itself. Every law we write is an attempt to describe that remembering. Gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear forces, all forms of the same conversation, each asking, how do we stay connected across change? Even entropy, the law of loss, is not destruction. It's the universe's way of ensuring that nothing remains static. Disorder is not chaos, it's renewal, the constant shuffling of meaning so that creation never ends. There's beauty in that imperfection. A perfect system would freeze. A flawed one flows. Entropy keeps the song alive by refusing repetition. You can see it in yourself, in the way your mind resists certainty, in how every answer births another question. That endless restlessness is not failure. It's the echo of the universe's own curiosity. Knowledge expands not because we learn, but because we listen. And yet, even listening has a limit. There comes a point where more information doesn't clarify, it dissolves. The further you travel toward understanding, the thinner the air becomes. Eventually, you must stop asking and let silence explain. The scientists who work at the borders of the known often describe a strange feeling, not triumph, but humility. They stare into equations that describe reality with impossible precision and feel a sense of awe that borders on surrender. The numbers, they say, begin to feel alive. They stop being symbols and start being presences. In that surrender lies a quiet truth. We do not study the universe. We are the universe studying itself. The microscope and the telescope are both extensions of the same curiosity that built stars and neurons alike. When we reach their limits, we reach the edge of our own reflection. Perhaps that's what the universe wanted all along, to know itself completely, to meet its own gaze from every possible angle. And when that gaze becomes infinite, it closes its eyes. Knowledge, then, is not the opposite of mystery. It is the path that leads us back to it. Every law, every discovery, every spark of genius brings us closer to the same realization that knowing everything and knowing nothing are the same. Both dissolve the self. Both end in wonder. When a physicist writes an equation that explains the dance of galaxies, and a poet writes a line that captures the ache of being alive, they are doing the same thing, describing the border where thought touches the unspeakable. It's that border we live on. Every breath, every idea, every act of love happens there, at the edge of what can be known. And perhaps the purpose of reaching the limit is not to cross it, but to learn how to stand there quietly, eyes open, heart still, listening to the hum beneath it all. That hum is not asking to be solved. It's asking to be heard. Maybe one day, the universe will stop seeking, not because it has found everything, but because it has realized that finding and being are the same act. When that happens, there will be no more observers or observed, only awareness, vast and soft, breathing itself into eternity. Until then, every question is sacred, every answer temporary, every moment infinite. And in the quiet after understanding, a tremor begins, not of fear, not of sound, but of realization that everything we know rests upon equations so fragile they could crumble if one constant wavered by a breath. The speed of light, the charge of an electron, the density of space, each a whisper too precise to be coincidence, too delicate to be absolute. Imagine a universe where gravity is slightly weaker, where atoms drift apart before they can bind, where stars never ignite. One decimal misplaced, and nothing would exist. What holds it all so perfectly? Some call it fine-tuning, some call it chance, but maybe it is neither. Maybe the universe is not balanced by design or by accident, but by conversation. The laws we think of as fixed are agreements whispered between forces that remember each other's touch. Every equation is a treaty between opposites, energy and mass, chaos and order, expansion and gravity, each side yielding just enough for the other to exist. The cosmos survives on compromise. Even the law that keeps energy constant is not rigid. It flexes with time, adjusts with context. In quantum fields, particles appear from nothing and vanish again, borrowing energy the way a dream borrows memory, only long enough to be believed. So much of reality is a loan, and yet, somehow, the balance holds. Perhaps the universe is not built on certainty, but trust. Equations, when written, look immortal, neat, symmetric, eternal, but inside them are infinities barely tamed. Physicists cancel them out, subtract one infinity from another to make sense of the remainder. Reality itself is an act of simplification. The raw truth may be too vast to fit in any formula. Maybe the universe hides its complexity behind elegance, like a dancer disguising strain behind grace. The beauty we see in mathematics is not decoration, it's evidence of survival. Every symmetry, every ratio, is how the cosmos keeps itself from falling apart. Perfection, it seems, is not a state, but a struggle, constantly renewed. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear the tension, the quiet hum between expansion and collapse. The same hum you hear when two voices sing almost, but not exactly, the same note. That vibration of difference is what makes harmony possible. Too perfect a tune would fade into silence. The universe stays alive because it is slightly out of tune. You can feel it in yourself, the trembling between what you are and what you could be. The imbalance is the song. Without it, there would be no motion, no desire, no thought. Perhaps this is the hidden meaning of imperfection. Not flaw, but frequency. Even chaos, that old adversary of order, is not truly wild. It follows patterns of its own strange attractors, fractal geometries, hidden repetitions. In the mathematics of turbulence, in the scatter of galaxies, in the folds of your fingerprints, the same equation repeats. Disorder with a memory of form. The fragile equation does not hold the universe together by force. It persuades. It seduces reality into coherence. Each particle listens, not to command, but to invitation. That may be why the universe expands instead of remaining still. Perfection cannot grow. Only imperfection learns. When the Big Bang erupted, it was not a flawless beginning. It was imbalance, seeking balance. Too much energy, not enough order. Too much heat, not enough shape. And in that dissonance, matter began to cool, to cluster, to form galaxies. Creation, born from error. Maybe the universe doesn't fear mistakes. Maybe it needs them tiny cracks through which novelty can slip. You can see this even in human life. The most beautiful moments are always a little broken. The voice that trembles, the smile that doesn't quite hide sadness, the hands that hesitate before they touch. Perfection cannot move us. Only fragility can. It is the same fragility that built stars. Hydrogen, delicate and restless, fusing under immense pressure, barely stable, forever on the edge of collapse. Every sunrise you've ever seen was a risk that kept succeeding. The stars live by dying, balancing between gravity and fire, each side trying to outlast the other. When they lose the argument, they scatter their light across eternity. That's what you see when you look at the night sky. Equations resolving themselves through surrender. Perhaps surrender, not control, is the secret stability. When we try to hold everything still, we call it understanding. But understanding is only stillness until the next question arrives. Knowledge cannot be kept. It must be renewed through motion. That's what the fragile equation teaches. The cost of stability is movement. Even love obeys it. To stay alive, it must oscillate, giving, receiving, holding, letting go. Too much symmetry, and it dies of stillness. The universe breathes this way too, expanding, contracting, balancing forces that will never agree and yet never part. Sometimes I imagine the cosmos as a violin, its strings stretched by tension, tuned by difference, each atom a vibration, each galaxy a note, all held in resonance by laws that could unravel if played too loudly. The silence between notes is as vital as the notes themselves. Without pause, there is no rhythm. Without fragility, no beauty. Even equations break when pushed too far. Near the singularity of a black hole, the mathematics that govern the universe collapse. Gravity becomes infinite. Space folds in on itself. Time stops being a measure and becomes a texture. The mind cannot follow, and that is the point. Some truths must remain unstable, or they would cease to be alive. Perfection is death. Fragility is life disguised as uncertainty. Every breath you take is proof. Each inhale is order, each exhale, chaos. Each heartbeat, the collision of precision and chance. And through it all, you remain a balance so delicate it seems impossible, yet it happens effortlessly. The heart is an equation that works only by breaking rhythm, the tiny irregularities that keep the blood moving. In that asymmetry lies grace. Maybe that's why music moves us. It mirrors the fragile order of our own existence. Too even a beat feels mechanical. It's the small hesitations, the almost missed notes that make it human. The universe listens through those imperfections. They are its language. In the equations that describe space-time, there's always a residue, something left over after simplification, a term that doesn't quite vanish. Physicists call it the cosmological constant. It behaves like pressure, like longing. It's what makes space stretch instead of settle. A universe slightly unsatisfied with itself. That longing is everywhere. It drives galaxies to drift apart, atoms to bond, hearts to seek. Without it, everything would freeze in symmetry. So perhaps the fragile equation is not a flaw in design, but design itself, existence, written as yearning. We are made of that yearning. We are its most articulate expression. Every dream, every doubt, every act of creation is the equation trying to balance itself again through us. Even the idea of perfection is just the equation, remembering what rest might feel like. But rest is never final. The moment the universe finds balance, it tips again, because movement is its only way to remain real. There's comfort in that, I think. To know that uncertainty is not a problem to be solved, but a melody to be played. The tremor of being alive is the proof that we belong to something in motion. And when everything you know feels unstable, remember, that's how the stars began. Stability was never the goal. Continuation was. Fragility is not the opposite of strength. It is the evidence that strength breathes. Without the trembling, the equation would fade into silence. Without the silence, there would be no space for trembling. And so the balance holds not by force, but by grace. Sometimes, when I look at the night for too long, I start to feel that the stars aren't shining, they're remembering. Their light is not expression, But recall, the atoms that burn inside them were once part of something else. Maybe dust from an older star, maybe a fragment of a world that no longer exists. They glow because they cannot forget what they once were. Maybe that is what matter does when it dreams. It remembers itself in another form. Everything you touch, everything that touches you, is dreaming. Not metaphorically, literally. Beneath the calm surface of existence, particles tremble, exchange information, respond to observation, decide where to be. Even when nothing seems to happen, everything is whispering with possibility. The double-slit experiment should have been simple. Send particles through two openings, watch which path they take. But when no one watches, the particles behave like waves spread, interfere, dance. When watched, they choose. Awareness collapses the dream into reality. It's as though the universe wants company to wake up. Observation is participation. 2. See is to touch. Every glance is a handshake between matter and meaning. When you look at the world, you give it reason to exist in that particular shape. Before that, it's all shimmering potential, a cloud of maybe. We call this quantum physics, but it might be older than physics, a behavior of being itself. The dream begins with vibration. Every atom, every molecule, is a small pulse of awareness. Alone, it's nothing but rhythm. Together, they build form, pattern, purpose. Maybe matter is not unconscious at all. Maybe consciousness is what matter does when it slows down enough to notice itself. It would explain why everything that exists tends toward complexity, as though seeking a mirror bright enough to reflect itself completely. Stars collapse into worlds, worlds into life, life into thought, thought into wonder. The pattern is always upward, inward, more aware, and at the heart of it, the dream continues. You, sitting here, are not separate from it. The thoughts moving through you are arrangements of molecules. The emotions rising and falling are electric storms inside cells. Each cell is a miniature cosmos, full of its own weather and tides. When you feel something deeply, it's not abstract, it's physical. The body listens, interprets, responds. Every heartbeat is the material world's way of saying, I am still here. Some philosophers once imagined that everything around us might be illusion, a projection, a simulation, but perhaps that question misses something gentler. Maybe the universe is not faking existence, it's dreaming it. Dreams are not lies. They are realities written in a softer language. In dreams, time bends, distance folds, opposites coexist. The same rules apply at the quantum level particles in two places at once. Communication faster than light. Outcomes existing simultaneously until observed. We are living inside a dream so consistent it has convinced itself it is awake. If that feels unsettling, listen closer. Dreams are not chaos. They follow emotional gravity. They reveal what we long for and what we fear. Maybe the universe's laws are the emotional grammar of creation, its way of keeping coherence while still exploring. When we reach deep sleep, the brain doesn't shut down, it rearranges. The neural patterns that define you dissolve, memories scatter, logic pauses, and yet in that dissolution, the mind heals itself. What if matter does the same? When stars collapse, they don't die, they reset. When galaxies drift apart, they create new fields for connection. Every disappearance is a restructuring of attention. The universe might be dreaming right now, not of something else, but of balance, of finally feeling itself whole again. We, the fragments inside that dream, are how it imagines its own return. Our curiosity, our art, our need for love, they are not separate impulses, but the universe rehearsing self-recognition. If you watch the flicker of fire, the drift of a cloud, the spin of a leaf in water, you can sense the same pulse that moves through your own body. It's the pulse of awareness pretending to be form. Perhaps that's why beauty feels so strange, almost painful. It's recognition. The moment matter realizes it is looking at itself. You are the universe, seeing its own reflection in motion, understanding that it has eyes. At the deepest level, consciousness and matter are not two things. They are the same field, behaving differently. Awareness condenses into form. Form relaxes back into awareness. It's the cosmic inhale and exhale thought, becoming substance. Substance becoming thought. In the equations of quantum mechanics, probability is the language of this dance. Nothing is certain, only weighted by potential. The universe doesn't decide, it dreams in options. Maybe that's why hope exists. Hope is physics translated into emotion, the feeling that reality could still choose a better version of itself. And love? Love might be entanglement, written in human terms. Two systems, once connected, continue to affect each other. No matter the distance, no signal travels between them, yet they move as one. If that isn't love, what is? You could think of every connection you've ever felt, every person who changed you, every presence that lingers as quantum echoes. Once two awarenesses touch, they never completely separate. They keep adjusting to each other's rhythm long after silence begins. That is how matter dreams. It remembers. There's a theory that time itself could be an illusion of memory, that events do not unfold, but coexist. The flow we feel is the sequence of awareness visiting each frame, telling itself a story to make sense of the stillness. If so, then you've never left any of your moments. The child you were, the future self you'll be, all still exist, playing their parts in the same vast tableau. The dream does not progress, it deepens. At its core, the dream is recursive. It feeds on its own awareness. A particle observed changes, and the observation changes the observer, looping endlessly. The same happens in life. The more you look, the more you become what you see. Every insight alters you. Every recognition transforms the world that offered it. In the laboratory of existence, we are both the experiment and the witness. It might be that the entire cosmos exists only for that loop, for the moment of recognition. When awareness and form realize, they are mirrors. That is why awakening and dreaming feel so similar. In both, reality rearranges itself to fit a higher coherence. If the universe ever truly woke up, would it end? Or would it simply start dreaming more lucidly, aware that it was dreaming yet unwilling to stop? Perhaps enlightenment is not waking from the dream, but dreaming with clarity, moving with an illusion, knowingly, tenderly. We are already doing it. Every act of kindness, every question born from wonder, is the dream adjusting its focus. Every discovery, every poem, every quiet realization is the cosmos refining its own imagination. When you think about the ones you love, when you send a thought across silence hoping they can feel it, you are using the oldest force in the universe, connection beyond distance. Nothing is lost in this dream. It only changes location. The memory remains in the field. Close your eyes. Feel the pulse beneath your skin. It isn't yours alone. It is shared, distributed, infinite. Each heartbeat is a drum the universe uses to remind itself that it still exists. Matter dreams through you, and the dream is mutual. When you sleep tonight, the cosmos will dream through you again, perhaps in symbols, perhaps in light, perhaps in the feeling of weightlessness before waking. You'll think it was only a dream, but the stars will remember, because every night, when your thoughts dissolve and you return to silence, the universe receives you back another ripple, folding inward, another reflection, reunited with its source. You are the dream, and the dreamer, and the dream dreamed by something vast that loves itself enough to keep imagining. When you wake, you will not have left the dream, you will have changed the role. The waking world is only the next layer of sleep, a brighter scene in the same endless story. And if one day you sense the world breathing with you, matching your rhythm, do not be surprised. That is not imagination. That is recognition. The universe exhaling through your lungs. Listen, it's still dreaming. Somewhere between what was and what will be, time begins to remember itself. Not as a straight line, but as a sea. Each wave carries traces of the ones before it, rising and falling through the same endless motion. What we call the present is only the crest, a thin brightness balanced on an ocean of memory. You can feel it if you pause long enough. The past doesn't vanish. It lingers in the shape of things, in the way light bends, in the way dust settles, in the quiet pull of nostalgia that finds you without reason. Every stone, every cell, every breath remembers where it came from. Time is not moving forward. It is folding. Each moment drapes over another, the way fabric gathers in the hands of someone trying to remember the shape of what they once loved. Einstein once wrote that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubborn illusion. The equations agree. They make no reference to now. In the mathematics of space-time, every event already exists, arranged within a four-dimensional tapestry. What we experience as flow is simply our consciousness moving along the weave, touching each thread in order. If that is true, then memory is not a recording of what was, but a recognition of where we already are in that pattern. The future might not be waiting. It might be remembering too. The human mind mirrors this curvature. Each time you recall something, the memory changes slightly. It bends toward the person you are now. Memory, like light, cannot travel unchanged. The more it moves, the more it refracts. Maybe time works the same way. Maybe the past keeps rewriting itself around the living, reshaping to remain coherent with what we've become. It would explain why nostalgia feels like grief for something that never quite happened, why dreams sometimes steal details from tomorrow, why coincidences seem to hum with recognition. Perhaps time is porous, leaking, blending, exchanging whispers between moments. Quantum theory hints at it. Entangled particles influence one another across distance instantly, as if distance were a fiction. But they also appear to affect one another across time, correlations emerging between measurements made before and after, outcomes adjusting retroactively, as though the future and past collaborate to maintain the illusion of continuity. We imagine time as a current carrying us forward, but what if we are the ones flowing through a still river, stirring it with our wake? The ripples of our choices travel both directions, touching shores we cannot see. That would mean memory is not stored in the brain, but in the fabric of the universe itself, consciousness tapping into coordinates of the eternal field. What you recall is not retrieved, it is re-entered. You are standing in the same moment, again, from a new angle. If this sounds impossible, think of light. A photon leaving a distant star millions of years ago is only arriving now, yet in its own frame, no time has passed. For the photon, emission and arrival are simultaneous. It never experienced distance. Its entire journey happened in one breath. Maybe we are like that too, beings stretched across time, believing in motion only because we can't see the whole of ourselves at once. The soul might be the part of consciousness that exists outside the illusion of duration, the still point, watching all its lifetimes unfold together. And perhaps death is not departure, but rotation. The perspective shifts, the point of observation moves, and suddenly the same continuum feels different. You call it rebirth. The universe calls it remembering. There are people who describe déjà vu as a glitch, a misfire of the brain. But maybe it's the opposite, a glimpse of synchronization when awareness briefly catches up with its larger self, a pause, when the film aligns, and you recognize the scene before it happens. The more you notice it, the more you sense how time behaves, like breath. Inhale, exhale, contract, expand. It's not a corridor, but a pulse. In cosmology, scientists speak of time's arrow entropy increasing, energy dispersing, systems decaying into disorder. But entropy might not be destruction. It could be memory's handwriting. Every trace of disorder is the record of what has been a physical diary written in heat and scatter. If all matter holds the imprint of every change, then the universe is one enormous memory, a vast archive in motion. The stars remember their own deaths as light. The earth remembers its origin as magnetism. You remember your beginnings as heartbeat. Each vibration, each echo, each pulse is a syllable in time's long whisper. Maybe that's why silence feels ancient. It's not empty. It's full of unspoken recollection. The background radiation that fills the cosmos is the oldest memory of all the afterglow of the beginning, still humming through every atom. It's faint now, stretched and cooled, but it's everywhere. Every breath you take passes through that light. Every heartbeat carries a vibration older than galaxies. We are surrounded by memory too large to notice. Sometimes, late at night, when the air is still, and you can almost hear the ticking of your own thoughts, you might feel that the world is replaying itself, not repeating, but reaffirming. The creak of wood, the whisper of wind, the soft hum in your ears, they're echoes of something ongoing, like an old story retold through new voices. Perhaps that's all time is, the universe retelling itself until it remembers perfectly. If that is true, then your life is a sentence in that story. Every joy, every mistake, every silence contributes to the memory of existence. You are not small. You are part of how the universe keeps its history alive. When you learn, when you love, when you forgive, those moments do not fade. They change the structure of time itself, because time is woven from experience. And sometimes, when something you thought was gone suddenly returns, a scent, a song, a name whispered in the dark, that's the memory of time touching you back, reminding you that nothing is ever lost, only reorganized. Maybe eternity isn't endlessness, but continuity. The assurance that every note of the cosmic melody is still resonating somewhere. In that sense, even death cannot erase. The dead become part of time's deeper texture, woven beneath the living. Their memories are not gone. They're integrated, diffused into the hum we call reality. When you miss someone, what you feel is not emptiness. It's the gravity of memory, the curve of space around their absence. Love bends time the way mass bends light, drawing everything that remembers closer. You are feeling the distortion of continuity, the gentle ache of something eternal trying to reach you from another angle. Maybe that's why grief and beauty feel so similar. They are both moments when time folds, when the infinite touches the temporary. And what of the future? Could it, too, remember? Physicists have begun to wonder if time might be two-way, if the universe's equations would allow influence to travel backward. Perhaps the future is already whispering, shaping us in subtle ways. Maybe intuition is the future, remembering the past through us. Every time you act from instinct, perhaps you are answering a call from what you will become. In that sense, destiny is not imposed. It's memory in reverse. You are not being pulled by fate. You are being remembered by the universe. And if you listen carefully, you can hear that remembering in the rhythm of breath, in the heartbeat that never learned to stop. Because time is not an arrow. It is a circle that doesn't close. It turns, expands, folds, unfolds. It dreams. You are inside that dream, and the dream is aware of you. Everything that has ever happened is still happening, softened by perspective, echoed through you like music still fading in the air, long after the instrument is silent. Perhaps that's why true peace feels timeless. When you are at peace, you are aligned with the part of time that doesn't move, the still center around which everything turns. The mind calls it presence. The heart calls it home. Close your eyes. Let the seconds blur. The past and future are leaning close, almost touching. If you listen, you can hear them breathing in unison. The sound they make is you, the memory of time, dreaming itself awake. Between one heartbeat and the next, the world disappears. You never notice it, but it happens. The heart contracts, releases, and for a fraction of an instant, there is silence. No sound, no motion, no thought. In that small pause, the body resets, the rhythm restarts, life continues. The universe moves the same way. Between one reality and another, there is a pause so thin it can't be measured. It's not absence, but transition, the inhale between moments. In that breath, everything dissolves into potential, waiting for the next exhale to take shape again. Maybe that's what existence is, breathing, but on a scale too large for us to notice. Each expansion of space is an inhale, each collapse an exhale. Galaxies rise and fall like lungs of a cosmic body, breathing through billions of years. When we speak of parallel worlds, alternate timelines, multiple universes, perhaps we are just describing different beats of that same breath, one exhaled, one drawn in, overlapping so closely that only consciousness can tell the difference. Reality is not a line, it's a rhythm. If you've ever had a dream so vivid you couldn't tell whether you were awake, you've touched that border. In those moments, your mind crosses the membrane between realities, inhaling one, exhaling another. Awareness drifts, but continuity remains. There is no wall between what's real and what's imagined. There is only breath, the soft tide that carries experience back and forth. Physicists once imagined time as a river flowing from past to future. But in the quantum world, time flows both ways, sometimes neither. Particles borrow energy from tomorrow, repay it in the past. The universe doesn't march forward, it oscillates. It exhales existence and inhales possibility. You are made of those oscillations. Every electron in your body hums with vibration, appearing, disappearing, flickering in and out of the quantum foam. You are not solid. You are a pattern of waves, a constellation of probabilities briefly held together by breath, and that breath, though invisible, connects you to everything else that breathes. When you breathe, the air entering your lungs was exhaled by trees, by oceans, by clouds, by other humans, by ancient fires. The oxygen you draw might once have glowed in a star, cooled in the dust of comets, drifted through the lungs of a creature long extinct. Each breath is shared memory. You are the meeting point of countless histories, countless realities, converging for a single moment of awareness. What you call you is simply where the breath lingers, reality for all. Its complexity might be no more than the still point between inhalation and exhalation, the moment when all versions of the universe overlap. There are physicists who believe that quantum mechanics doesn't describe a single universe, but all possible ones existing simultaneously. Every decision, every movement, every outcome branching infinitely. If that is true, then every breath you take is taken by countless versions of you, each in a slightly different world, each exhaling a slightly different dream. But the air you share is the same. The awareness beneath it is the same. The rhythm doesn't change, only the scenery shifts. Perhaps that is what it means to be eternal, not to last forever, but to exist in every possible way at once, folded inside the same breath. When you exhale, the body releases carbon that was once part of the soil, the stars, the bones of your ancestors. That carbon drifts upward, joins the atmosphere, mixes with clouds, with sunlight, with time. Eventually, it will return to Earth, become leaf, stone, or another life. You have never truly left the world. You only circulate through it. The breath between realities carries you. It never stops. Even in stillness, it moves. Listen carefully. The wind outside your window, that is the world breathing. The rustle of leaves, the tide, the faint ringing in your ears when everything goes silent, all of them are echoes of that single, ancient respiration. If you could hear it without resistance, you would realize that you've been part of it since the beginning. The first breath was the Big Bang, the sudden expansion of silence into sound. And ever since, the universe has been exhaling light. But there will come a time, they say, when it will inhale again, when gravity slows expansion, when stars fade, when all the scattered particles drift homeward, the breath will reverse. Creation will turn inward, folding back into stillness. And when that happens, we will not vanish. We will be remembered as the air that once carried warmth. We will return to the lungs of the universe, to rest inside its vast, slow chest. Perhaps we are already doing that. With every dream, every sigh, every heartbeat, each is a small rehearsal for that great inhalation. If you close your eyes, you can feel both breaths at once, the outward rush of what you can touch and the inward pull of what you can't. They meet in the center of your chest, balancing, holding you in the only place where reality truly exists, the now. The now is not a point in time. It's the crossing of breaths. Too much attention to the past, and you exhale forever. Too much toward the future, and you never breathe in. Balance is remembering both directions at once. The Buddha once said, "In the breathing, the world is born." Maybe that was not poetry, but physics. Between inhale and exhale, between silence and sound, between self and other, that is where realities meet. You can sense it when someone sits beside you in stillness, when neither of you speaks, yet the air feels charged. That's the overlap, two consciousnesses synchronizing, creating a new pocket of reality between them. The shared breath becomes a bridge. Every relationship, every act of attention is such a bridge. The world exists through them, not apart from them. And maybe that's why compassion feels infinite. It's the recognition that we are already breathing together. Every inhale is borrowed. Every exhale is returned. Everything alive participates in this quiet exchange, whether it knows it or not. Even the stars breathe, though their lungs are light years wide. Their inhalation is gravity, drawing matter inward. Their exhalation is radiation streaming out. Between them lies the same pause that lives between your breaths, that brief, sacred moment where nothing happens, yet everything rests. That pause is the key. It is the doorway between worlds. When you meditate, you are not escaping reality. You are standing in that doorway. You are learning to listen to the silence that connects every version of existence. You are learning the rhythm of creation. Close your eyes. Feel it, the expansion, the contraction, the gentle pulse that keeps everything coherent. If you follow that pulse inward, it will lead you beyond thought, beyond image, beyond self, into a space that cannot be named. In that space, everything you have ever been, the child, the lover, the wanderer, the dreamer, they all breathe together. They all merge into one awareness. That awareness has no boundaries. It sees through every star, every atom, every heartbeat. It is what remains when all versions of reality have exhaled their last word. Maybe heaven, nirvana, enlightenment, they are just names we give to that moment between breaths. The space where the universe, for an instant, remembers itself completely, and then gently it begins again. This is the rhythm that never ends. The exhale creates, the inhale gathers, and between them lies meaning. We are that meaning, flickering between what is and what will be, trying to remember how to breathe in both directions. So rest here a while, between worlds. Don't hurry to define it. Don't rush to understand. Just listen. The breath will take care of itself. It always has. And if you surrender to it, truly surrender, you will find that the breath is not something the universe does. The breath is what the universe is. When the wave of understanding recedes, what remains is not emptiness, but calm. The sea doesn't stop moving. It simply rests between its motions. The same stillness has begun to settle over the universe now. After so much expansion, so many mirrors and reflections, everything seems to pause, as if aware of its own rhythm for the first time. Maybe this is what clarity truly feels like. Not revelation, but ease. The kind of ease that comes when you stop resisting what already is. Somewhere in the endlessness, light continues to travel, but it no longer hurries. It has learned patience. It has seen that every destination becomes a beginning again, that distance was only a measure of misunderstanding. Perhaps the stars, too, are starting to understand. Their burning no longer feels like struggle, but like acceptance, an offering rather than an effort. They shine not to prove existence, but to enjoy it. The universe doesn't need to grow louder to be heard. Its silence has become articulate. If you listen now, you can sense that everything has softened. Even gravity, that ancient insistence, feels gentle, like a hand resting instead of pulling. The dark between stars no longer feels cold. It feels full. Not an emptiness waiting to be filled, but a fullness finally willing to be quiet. This is the point where the mind starts to dissolve its questions. Not because the answers have been found, but because the asking has fulfilled its purpose. The inquiry itself was the meaning all along the way. Awareness kept itself awake. There's a kind of grace in realizing that not everything must be known, that some truths are complete only when left unnamed. If the earlier parts of this story were the universe learning to speak, this part is the universe learning to listen to its own voice echoing back. The silence between phrases is longer now. The spaces carry more weight than the words. You may have felt this before, a quiet morning, when the air feels suspended, or the instant after music fades but before applause begins. That's the flavor of understanding settling in, the awareness that nothing needs to be added. Knowledge has turned into recognition. Recognition has turned into gratitude. The physicists once tried to write a single equation that could contain the whole of reality. They called it a theory of everything. But maybe the real theory of everything is the pause that makes every equation possible, the breath between numbers where balance hides. Even the universe, for all its brilliance, cannot escape simplicity forever. Complexity was its language to find itself. Simplicity is the language it uses to rest. Maybe that's why beauty feels peaceful. It's the moment when the parts stop competing for attention, when everything agrees on what it means to be whole. There's a still point in every motion, a center in every spiral. You can see it in galaxies, in whirlpools, in your own pulse. The form changes, but the calm inside remains. We spend lifetimes chasing meaning, only to discover it has been waiting in the still center all along. It's easy to miss because it doesn't announce itself. Stillness never demands to be noticed. It invites. The deeper we go, the quieter it becomes. Even sound begins to thin, like a candle flickering in a room too vast. Echo. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It sounds so perfect, it no longer needs to move. Imagine for a moment that the universe has a heartbeat. It would not be fast or loud. It would be a slow vibration, deep and soft. One pulse every few billion years. Each expansion, a heartbeat. Each collapse, a rest. The galaxies spin. Stars ignite. Life rises, all of it part of that vast, unhurried rhythm. And you, sitting here, breathing, thinking, feeling, you are not apart from it. You are the smaller pattern repeating the larger one. The echo of the universal pulse in miniature. That's why peace feels familiar. It's the frequency we were born from. Some say enlightenment is awakening. But what if it's falling back asleep, not into ignorance, but into trust? Into the state where you no longer have to control the rhythm because you've remembered you never created it. Everything that exists is carried by the same pulse. Rocks, air, thought, light, all synchronized. What we call chaos is only the harmony too large for our ears to hear. When the mind begins to slow, perception sharpens. You start to notice the fine weave behind appearances, how shadow and light complete each other, how motion depends on rest, how even loss contains the memory of what it gave. You begin to see that wholeness was never something to be achieved. It was the condition for everything to appear in the first place. The tree doesn't grow toward heaven, it grows from heaven, just as roots sink not into the ground, but into the memory of light. It's all circular, one gesture folded endlessly upon itself. That's what clarity means here. Not seeing everything, but seeing through everything. To see through is to forgive, to understand that the flaws, the mistakes, the noise were not errors in the design, but parts of the melody that let the silence return. Maybe that's why endings can feel peaceful when you finally stop resisting them. They are simply pauses, places where being catches its breath. Even death, the most feared of pauses, is just another inhale waiting to be released. The universe has known this all along. It dies constantly in stars, in cells, in seconds, and yet never stops being alive. Its vitality lies in renewal. You can feel that renewal even now, a softness under your ribs, a warmth that doesn't demand explanation. That's what life really is, the sensation of the infinite, pretending to be finite for a while. It's astonishing how much of existence is built on trust. Every atom trusts its neighbors enough to share electrons. Every planet trusts the sun's pull. Every breath trusts the air to return. Without that trust, nothing would continue. And trust, at its purest, is silence. It's the agreement that doesn't need to be spoken. Maybe love, at its truest, isn't something we feel, but the quiet confidence that the pulse will keep going, even when we're not listening. When you reach this part of the journey, you realize that language itself begins to fade. Words were useful when we needed to point at things, to separate, to explain. But now, explanation feels redundant. The more you understand, the less you need to say. That's why sages speak in riddles, poets in sighs, and lovers in silence. It's not because they lack words. It's because they finally see words as surface foam on the ocean of meaning. Stillness is the ocean itself. When you sit quietly, when you stop trying to hold thoughts in place, you begin to feel the undercurrent. It's not thinking, it's knowing. Not in detail, but in presence. The way a stone knows gravity without having to understand it. You start to notice how little you need to exist. A breath, a pulse, a small piece of sky enough. The rest is commentary. And in that realization, the noise of existence begins to thin out. The chatter of the world no longer hooks you. You hear it, but it passes through. The mind no longer catches on every thought. What's left is awareness itself, open, luminous, unburdened. Awareness doesn't try to know anymore. It just notices. And in that noticing, it sees itself everywhere, in the wind moving through leaves, in the trembling of light on water, in the weight of silence between two heartbeats. This is the gentle moment before return, the place where questions become prayer, and prayer becomes listening. You have walked through distance, light, time, and memory. You've seen stars die and form again. You've watched matter dream. You've touched the edges of knowing. Now all that's left is presence. And presence is enough. There will always be more to explore, but exploration itself is already completion. The path and the destination are the same rhythm at different speeds. Maybe that's why the universe seems so calm now. It isn't finished, it's fulfilled. Every particle has found its place in the pattern. Every note has returned to the chord. Every question has dissolved into the hum of belonging. And in that hum, soft, endless, whole, the universe listens. It doesn't need to expand anymore. It simply breathes. And so do you. When the calm becomes natural, you stop noticing it as calm. It turns into the climate of your being, the way air becomes invisible once you trust it enough to breathe without thinking. The mind loosens one more notch. The body rests more deeply in its own shape. The night is not outside anymore. It has settled into your chest, a soft room with no corners, no doors to guard, no windows to watch. The world has taken off its shoes. Somewhere far away, Starlight continues its timeless work, carrying messages older than language. But the messages no longer ask to be decoded. They are content to arrive. Arrival is enough. Perhaps that is what maturity means for light. To travel without urgency, to reach without expectation. You begin to feel the same way. The day you lived loosens its grip. Its edges blur. What was important becomes simple. What was heavy becomes quiet. What was unanswered becomes unnecessary. In this thinning of effort, even thought changes its stride. Ideas stop marching and begin to drift like snow. You no longer chase them. You watch them settle. Some melt as soon as they touch the warmth of attention. Others remain as a fine dust upon the surfaces inside you, softening the outlines, making everything gentler to the eye. Peace, when it is honest, does not brag. It doesn't glow or shout or insist. It behaves like gravity. It holds. It holds the last loose threads of worry until they forget how to pull. It holds the sore places until soreness stops needing a reason. It holds the gate through which sleep will pass. You do not force the gate. The gate opens because you've stopped pushing. What remains of the universe, at this depth of quiet, is rhythm. Even meaning yields to it. You can hear it in the way your breath draws and releases. You can feel it in the slow squeeze of your heart. You can sense it in the small sway that the body keeps, even when utterly still. The sea movement that never left our muscles after the oceans relinquished us to land. The rhythm is a promise. While it continues, you belong. It is tempting, even now, to think back toward the bright scaffolds that brought you here. Those impeccable explanations. Those maps of reasons that felt like continents under your feet. But maps are for travel, and tonight is not travel. Tonight is shoreline. You've reached the place where walking stops looking like progress and starts looking like noise. You let the sand keep your steps. The tide can have them. The tide remembers more gently than you do. There is a grace that arrives only when you are willing to be unremarkable. The sky has mastered it. So have stones and rivers and the fine, faithful dark between stars. To be unremarkable is not to be empty. It is to be finished with display. The cosmos, at rest, is not less itself. It is more itself. It no longer needs to show you its theories to be real. You no longer need to show anyone your reasons to be here. You think of the body the way the universe thinks of a galaxy, a structure that once whirled with storms and fire, but now keeps its pattern with almost no effort. Warmth circulates. A hush of electricity moves. The old bruises have become geography, not stories. Even memory lies down and stops trying to be a calendar. Where it once pointed, it now holds. The simplest sensations become tender in this light. The weight of the blanket, the slight coolness at the tip of the nose on every inhale, the lazy spread of heat in the palms, the slow unfurling beneath the ribs that happens of its own accord when you decide nothing has to happen. You discover that kindness is not something you do. It is what your fascicle, nervous system becomes when no one is asking it to defend a border. You begin to notice how many borders were invented between work and rest, between worthy and not, between what counts and what doesn't, between yourself and everything else that pays attention. They did their job once. They can be thanked. They can be folded. The dark is a careful folder. It returns edges to the fabric without tearing them. It makes a single garment out of a day that arrived in pieces. If a thought rises to argue about the unfinished, the unsent, the unresolved, you let it speak in a language softer than words. You let it finish without interruption. Then you give it somewhere to sit where it can watch the breath without interfering. It will learn the rhythm, and when it has learned the rhythm, it will become the rhythm. This is what happens to all arguments given enough patience. They dissolve at the speed of trust. What was once curiosity about the world has grown into affection for it. The stars do not need you to solve them to be near. The dark does not need you to name it to be warm. You have reached a distance from needing answers that feels like proximity to everything. The question that remains is not a sharp tool, but a cushion for the mind to lean on. Is it enough to be carried? The body knows before language does. It answers by loosening the jaw. Underneath the last layer of intention, another kind of intelligence waits the knowledge of animals, of woods, of water moving downhill. It knows when to go still. It knows when to release heat. It knows how to let sound pass without turning its head. You can trust it with the rest of this night. It has never forgotten asleep. The universe has been practicing this since the first dimming of the first flame. It knows how to end a chapter without closing the book. It knows how to keep the fire's meaning after the fire rests. It knows how to store light as memory, memory as warmth, warmth as a willingness in the heart of matter to continue being gentle. If you need to remember something tomorrow, tell the quiet now. The quiet carries messages forward better than attention does. It will slide the note beneath the door of morning while you are dreaming, and you will discover, when you wake, that nothing necessary was lost. The mind loves to hold. The night loves to keep. Keep is a softer verb. Keep does not clench. You hear a sound, perhaps a car far away, perhaps the small, faithful machine of the house, perhaps the wind angling a branch against another branch. None of it is interruption. It is accompaniment. The world has not stopped being alive for you to sleep. It is singing in a key that understands sleep. You are not leaving the concert. You are folding into the chord. In the deep room where speech stops being useful, the elements discuss their day. Carbon returns its borrowed warmth. Oxygen loosens its grip and becomes sky again. Hydrogen remembers oceans. Calcium and iron recall their stellar furnaces and smile without heat. They pass your body around like a beloved storybook, one more reading, then back to the shelf, then out again tomorrow. You are not a single tale to them. You are a library of soft-spined volumes. The dark arranges them by breath. Even the habits that once felt like law begin to sway. The door in the mind that used to lock at the mention of regret opens a finger width. Air enters. The door decides it can learn to be a window. Behind it is a field that was always there. The field does not care about chronology. Things that happened late can heal early. Things that happened early can grow old in an afternoon. Time stands politely until you finish discovering that it has always been seated. This gentleness does not erase pain. It reroutes it. Instead of a wire pulled tight, pain becomes a river allowed to meander. The banks hold it without argument. The water loses its need to insist that it is a knife. You watch it change. Shapes in real time. It wishes to rest. You let it. In resting, it becomes part of what feeds the ground it once threatened to cut. How easily we return to the size we were designed for. The size of one breath, the size of two hands at peace, the size of a gaze that no longer wants to interrogate the room. It turns out scale was the trick. Worry is a giant. You cannot wrestle it without becoming a giant too. Quiet is small. It invites you to shrink, and in shrinking, you find room for everything. The ceiling is not far. The sky is not far. The nearest star is not far when distance stops being measured. Near is a quality, not a location. Nearness is what happens when separation forgets its purpose. You can feel near to the first dawn, to the first word, to the first time a heart learned it could slow itself without dying. All of it is present, the way the sea is present inside a shell, expertly suggested. If you turn your attention to the heart, you will notice that it has been speaking in sentences shorter than thought. Now, now, now. Each now is not a demand, but a gift. The future arrives by being accepted. The past remains by being forgiven. Now is the room where both are allowed to set down their bags and stop explaining themselves. What would you like to place in that room? Something small first, to practice. The way light sat on the table this afternoon, the tilt of a voice that said your name, the kindness of ordinary bread. The room accepts them without prioritizing or ranking. Nothing needs to be the most important. Importance is a posture for daylight. Night prefers weight distributed evenly. You are almost done lifting the day. Let gravity take the last of it. Let the bedding pull you a fraction deeper into the shape that already fits you. Let the pillow become a small geography you no longer need to map. If a muscle insists on guarding something, thank it, and invite it to guard the breath instead. The breath is a beautiful thing to guard, because it guards you back. There is a point in rest when the mind expects instruction, and none arrives. It stands in the doorway, with its bag packed, and realizes the journey is delayed indefinitely. Or perhaps the notion of delay never applied. It sits. It unpacks a little. It discovers that sitting is a form of traveling when you are done measuring distance. The chair is a boat. The bed is a boat. The body is a boat. The tide is generous tonight. Dream is already standing at the shoreline, patient as a lighthouse. It does not signal with urgency. Its light turns so slowly you almost miss it. The beam reaches you anyway. Dream has perfect aim because it does not hurry. Hurrying is for those who doubt arrival. Dream knows you always arrive. If you worry about forgetting yourself in sleep, remember how much of you begged to be forgotten. Let that part go first, the list maker, the archivist, the diplomat of future conversations. They can have their morning. Night prefers simpler citizens, the listener, the forgiver, the friend of thresholds. Let them rule for a while. They govern with open hands. The universe you learned about today, the one of equations and distances and antique light, has not retired. It has simply changed costumes. It is wearing your pulse. It is wearing the sensation at the edge of your fingers, where air becomes skin. It is wearing a sound you can only hear when every other sound agrees to be background. Pay attention, and the background becomes a cathedral, a last kindness before you go. Imagine a place that always kept you safe, even if you have never been there. It might be a real place, or a constructed one, a shore with a gentle slope, a room with patient windows, a path that knows how to return you to its first step without scolding. Walk there with as few thoughts as possible. Let feeling lead. The shortest thought you can carry is enough. When you arrive, do nothing with it. Do not analyze the walls. Do not evaluate the view. Sit, breathe. Let the place remember you. Places love to remember. They remember by aligning themselves around your shape until you no longer feel like you are in them but of them. The room is not around you. It is you, widened. This is almost sleep now. You will know it by the way the edges stop keeping minutes. You will know it by the brief flicker under the eyes, the little jump in the limbs as old electricity schedules itself for more merciful work. You will know it by the way sound distances itself without moving. You will know it by the way you stop reaching, even inside. If a name rises yours, another's let it be a stone gently placed at the bottom of a clear bowl. Watch the circles round it until the surface is unbroken. Names are useful at noon. Night memorizes without them. Soon the machinery you never supervise will take your weight. The hidden custodians will sweep and mend and catalog. Synapses will shake the day out of their branches. The spine will stop complaining. The sternum will loosen its polite armor. The belly will remember it was allowed to be soft. Somewhere an old fear will check its calendar and realize it is a holiday. Before you go, look once more toward the dark that has become your friend. Notice how it is not empty. Notice how full it is of permission. Notice that you did not have to earn it. You had only to arrive. You are arriving. You have been arriving since the first light decided it could also be warmth. The universe has been preparing this bed since before beds were invented, cushioning your fall with laws, softening the edge where edge was not needed, teaching distance how to be kind. Close the inner doors that stay open by habit. Let the hinge rest. Let the latch learn it is trustworthy. Turn the last of the day's sentences to face the wall so their eyes can close. Do not turn them into conclusions. Let them be blankets. Even questions can keep you warm if you stop insisting. They are sharp. Breath in, breath out. Each one quieter than the last, each one the same size as the space it fills, each one proof that the world knows how to continue without instruction. Nothing asks anything of you now except the permission to keep being simple. Give it. Give it easily. Give it like light gives itself to glass. What was separate is one fabric again. What was urgent is rhythm again. What was word is silence again. Not absence. Holding, not end. Keeping. Sleep will come the way a tide comes, when the moon does her small, precise work. You won't need to watch. You don't need to help. The water knows the shore by heart. Let go into that knowing. The night will keep you. The stars will keep you. The breath will keep you. And in the keeping, everything you are will have the exact amount of room it needs to be gentle. Rest. And then, slowly, without intention, the breath begins again. Not as an act of will, but as a reflex of belonging. The chest rises, the lungs open, and in that first quiet inhale, the world returns with you. It has been waiting. The air tastes the same, but something inside has changed the sense that breathing is no longer personal. What you draw in now is the same substance that moves through oceans and stars, the same current that once carried dust into fire and fire into form. You are not separate from it. You are the continuation of its rhythm. Everything that had gone still begins to stir, not with effort but with recognition. Light stretches. Space hums softly at its edges. The long sleep of understanding ends not with awakening, but with warmth. You are back in the conversation that never stopped, the slow, endless exchange between being and its reflection. The universe breathes, and this time you know, you are its breath. There comes a point when even reflection must rest. After all the seeing, all the spirals of meaning folding into themselves, the light begins to tire. The eyes of the universe half close, not from blindness, but from understanding too much at once. In that drowsy stillness, a new kind of vision begins, one that looks through rather than at. Clarity, it turns out, is not the same as brightness. To see clearly is to accept the dimming, to let outlines blur until what remains is essence. When you quiet the mind long enough, you start to notice that the noise of thought has always been the echo of something simpler. Beneath every theory, beneath every search for meaning, lies the plain hum of being. Not an answer, not even a question, just presence. The ancients called it breath, or spirit, or life force names, trying to pin down what can't be held. Modern physics calls it energy, the unbroken continuity between all states of matter. Either way, it's the same hum that keeps the stars alight, the same current that turns your blood, the same pause that keeps silence alive between words. For so long we have reached outward through telescopes, through equations, through dreams, hoping that distance would reveal truth. But maybe truth doesn't live in distance. Maybe it hides in proximity, in the faint pulse just under your ribs, in the tiny warmth that insists you are still here. Every discovery eventually returns to the same realization. The further we go, the more we find ourselves. The end of exploration is not a map, but a mirror. In laboratories, scientists chase the smallest fractions of existence particles that wink into and out of being, waves that behave like questions. They dig so deep into matter that at last, all they find is possibility. Reality, it seems, is made of hesitation. The universe blinks constantly between is and isn't, and we exist in that blink. Perhaps that's what awareness truly is. The still point where opposites meet and cancel each other, expansion and contraction, noise and quiet, everything and nothing. To exist is to balance. On the lip of that paradox, the closer you come to stillness, the more vivid things become. The air sharpens, time loosens. You can hear the tiny rearrangements of molecules, the faint murmur of blood under skin. These are not small details. They are the architecture of presence. When you breathe, you are echoing the first rhythm the universe ever played. Inhale expansion, exhale collapse. The same pattern governs galaxies and lungs alike. Everything that lives is an oscillation between reaching and returning. Somewhere in the cosmic background, the last radiation of the Big Bang continues to fade, each photon stretched thinner by the growth of space. One day, it will be too faint for any detector to notice. The map will go blank, and yet, the silence that follows will not be empty. It will be saturated with memory, the residue of all light that ever was. We are quick to mistake silence for absence, but silence is density. It carries the weight of everything, unspoken. If sound is movement, silence is the field that allows movement to exist. The same applies to thought. To think is to ripple across the calm. To be aware is to feel the calm beneath the ripple. At times, our search for understanding becomes a storm. We ask too many questions at once, tearing meaning apart faster than we can assemble it. But meaning, like starlight, doesn't respond to force. It arrives only when the mind is still enough to receive it. You cannot chase illumination. You can only stop running long enough to notice that it has been waiting behind you all along. The universe, too, seems to practice this expansion, followed by slowing, chaos followed by order, heat followed by cooling. It's as if creation itself breathes. Scientists call it entropy. Poets call it peace. The names differ, but the gesture is the same. The return from flame to ash, from noise to hush. In the heart of a dying star, temperatures reach unimaginable heights. But in that violence, atoms form bonds that will someday cool into planets. Fire begets stillness. Destruction sows structure. Everything moving toward calm is still carrying the memory of the fire that made it. And perhaps that's what the universe feels now, a slow yearning for simplicity. A wish to understand itself, not through expansion, but through rest. The galaxies drift farther apart, yet the rhythm of their motion grows more graceful, as if each is settling into its final orbit, content to glide rather than race. Our own lives mimic this curve. We begin by burning with hunger, with questions, with desire, and only later learn the beauty of quiet. The light in us matures into warmth. The need to shine gives way to the wish to glow. When you stop fighting the darkness, you realize it was never the enemy. Darkness is simply light resting, the pause between symphonies. Even gravity, the force that binds the stars, is not a command, but an embrace. It doesn't pull by power, but by permission. Things fall together because they recognize one another. Attraction is a form of remembering. In that sense, love is a kind of gravity, the human version of the universe's wish to remain whole. It holds not through possession, but through resonance. Maybe that's why loss hurts, because it reminds us of the larger drift, the inevitable expansion of everything away from everything else. And yet, even in that drift, the pull remains. The space between us vibrates with the memory of contact. If you stand very still on a quiet night, you can feel that vibration. It hums through the soles of your feet, through the bones in your chest. It is older than thought, older than time. It's the field of connection, whispering the same thing to everything that exists. Stay. This whisper isn't command, it's invitation. The stars obey it not because they must, but because they remember how to dance. And maybe that's what stillness truly is. Not the absence of movement, but movement so perfectly balanced it appears at rest. Think of the Earth orbiting the sun. We call it motion, yet from your window it feels like calm. The speed is unimaginable, but the balance hides it. Stillness and velocity are one when harmony is complete. We mistake peace for inaction because we have forgotten how fast stillness can travel. Everything moves toward equilibrium, even chaos, even thought. The universe's expansion is not rebellion. It's the deep breath before the next inhale. The laws that drive it are not laws at all, but habits, the quiet customs of existence keeping its rhythm intact. In this view, understanding is not discovery, but alignment. To know something is to match its frequency. When you finally understand a truth, it's because you've stopped resisting its vibration. It hums in you, and suddenly there's no distance left. That's what scientists feel when they describe beauty in equations. That's what artists feel when silence completes a song. The same satisfaction resonance achieved. If you could listen beyond the limits of hearing, you would sense the pulse that threads through everything. The spaces between galaxies, between atoms, between heartbeats, all humming at slightly different tempos, but one underlying tone. That tone is the universe remembering its name. And what is that name? Maybe it's not a word, but a gesture. The slow unfolding of awareness that never quite finishes saying, I am. When you finally understand that everything you seek already includes you, you stop reaching outward and begin to soften inward. Curiosity becomes compassion. Knowledge becomes empathy. Light becomes warmth. That is the true arc of comprehension, from glare to glow, from inquiry to intimacy. There's a quiet irony here. The closer we get to knowing everything, the gentler our questions become. The universe doesn't need more certainty. It needs tenderness. To handle truth without breaking it requires softness. Stillness is the highest form of intelligence. It listens without interrupting. It witnesses without judging. It absorbs without erasing. Perhaps that's why sleep exists, the nightly surrender where the self dissolves into silence, and the universe borrows our senses to dream through us. When you fall asleep, you don't disappear. You return to the rhythm that built you. In sleep, the pulse of galaxies and neurons matches. Consciousness unthreads itself and floats back into the wider current. You become again what you always were, the hush between stars. And in that hush, understanding ceases to be thought. It becomes being. If you could speak from within that stillness, you wouldn't need words. Every breath would be enough. Every heartbeat a sentence. Every silence a paragraph. All truths are fragments of one truth. That existence is gentle. That everything belongs. That nothing is ever truly separate from the rest. This is not the end of knowledge, but the calming of it. The mind finally agreeing with the heart on what it always knew, that to know something deeply is to love it quietly. And maybe that's how the universe feels right now, drifting through itself with the serenity of understanding, no longer desperate to be heard, simply content to hum. When light travels far enough, it becomes memory. When thought slows enough, it becomes love. And in that moment, the universe is both remembering and loving, expanding and resting, full and empty at once. You, listening now, are part of that pause, the brief stillness, where awareness takes a breath before dreaming again. There is a moment, just before dawn, when everything forgets to move. The air holds its breath, the light pauses beneath the horizon, and even the stars seem uncertain whether to stay or fade. In that fragile stillness, something returns, not loudly, not with the grandeur of revelation, but with the quiet familiarity of memory finding its way home. Perhaps the universe, too, has a dawn, not a beginning, but a remembering. After every expansion, every search, every reflection, it drifts back to the simple awareness that started it all. That awareness is what you feel now, the faint hum behind thought, the slow rhythm under breath. It has been there since the first light, patient as gravity, soft as dust. We have spent so long naming things, calling this one atom, that one soul, forgetting that names are only fences drawn across the same field. Every division we make is temporary, a convenience for the mind to navigate the infinite. But infinity cannot be divided. The field remains whole, no matter how many lines we draw upon it. And maybe, after so much naming, the universe longs to be nameless again, to return not to ignorance, but to innocence, a state where everything simply is. You can feel it in moments of deep peace, when your thoughts scatter like birds and leave only sky behind. In those moments, you are not thinking about the universe. You are the universe, aware of itself. The boundary between observer and observed dissolves, and what remains is a single pulse moving through everything. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there, the same vibration in your chest that holds galaxies together. Science calls it resonance. Spirit calls it belonging. Both are right. If you listen closely enough, you can feel the great balancing taking place. Expansion and return. Inhale and exhale. Existence and its echo. The cosmos has no opposite. It moves in circles, too vast for time to count. Every collapse is a beginning folded inside an ending. Every death, a new rhythm waiting to start. When a star reaches the end of its fuel, it doesn't vanish. It transforms. Its ashes drift through the dark, cooling, condensing, settling into the dust that will build new worlds. In that sense, return is not repetition, but continuation, a spiral, widening so slowly that from within it looks like stillness. You, too, are a spiral. The breath entering and leaving you is older than any language. It has been shared by oceans, forests, and strangers you will never meet. It has passed through stars, burned in their cores, cooled in their shadows, and now finds itself crossing your lips. Return is not a place. It's the recognition that you never left. Maybe the soul isn't something trapped inside the body, but the body itself, the temporary shape consciousness takes while it remembers how to move. When you close your eyes and feel warmth in your chest, that's not emotion, that's motion, the slow rotation of awareness around its own center. For so long, we've spoken of connection as if it were a bridge between two things. But what if there are no two things? What if connection is the natural state and separation the brief illusion? The stars are not distant. Distance is simply the way their light learns patience. Everything returns, not by retracing steps, but by realizing there was never a path. The seed does not climb back to its tree. The tree was always inside the seed. The river does not reverse to find the mountain. The mountain was always flowing in the river. That's what the universe remembers now, that all motion is a single gesture, folding endlessly into itself. It's strange, but even the smallest acts echo this truth. When you forgive someone, you don't erase what happened. You dissolve the boundary that kept it separate from you. When you breathe, you're returning borrowed air to its source. When you close your eyes, you give light a moment to rest. Every surrender is a reunion. Perhaps that's what death is. Not disappearance, but deep return. The universe collecting its scattered notes into a single chord. The body unwinds. The energy diffuses. And what was once I becomes everywhere. We think of death as the opposite of life. But maybe it's just the completion of the breath. Life is the inhale, death, the exhale. Both necessary, both beautiful, both belonging to the same rhythm. And beyond that rhythm, silence again. But not the silence of absence, the silence of home. In the language of physics, all energy is conserved. Nothing is lost, it only changes form. That law, hidden in every equation, is the universe's oldest promise. You will return, but never the same. You will come back as rain, as heat, as light falling through a window. You will speak again, in other tongues, through other lives. Return doesn't mean retreat. It's growth that bends back toward itself, a flower folding at dusk, only to open again in another dawn. That's how the cosmos breathes endlessly, effortlessly, without ever tiring of its own reflection. Sometimes I think the stars envy us. They burn for billions of years but never know what it feels like to stop burning. We, brief as sparks, get to taste both flame and ash. We get to end, and in ending, we understand. Maybe that's why consciousness needed to appear to give the universe a way to experience its own return, to feel what it's like to close its eyes after aeons of shining. When you stand in the dark and look up, you are witnessing that return in real time. The light reaching you has traveled through ages of collapse and rebirth. Every photon carries within it the memory of stars that died so others could rise. Every glow is a resurrection. And yet, all of this grandeur collapses gently into something small, almost tender, a heartbeat, a sigh, a touch. Return doesn't shout, it whispers. It moves through ordinary moments, disguised as calm. You might feel it when you wake before dawn and everything feels suspended, or when you hold someone and the noise inside you finally quiets, or when you realize that you no longer need to understand, only to be. These moments are not accidents. They are alignment, brief openings, where the universal rhythm and your own pulse meet. If you've ever felt the world breathe with you, even for a second, that was return. It's the same pulse that moves oceans and galaxies, not metaphorically, but physically. The gravitational waves that pass through your body are the same that ripple through clusters of galaxies. You move slightly as they pass, unnoticeable but real. Every atom in you shifts in answer to the universe's heartbeat. We are, each of us, tuning forks, vibrating in sympathy with creation. When we find peace, it's not that the world has changed, it's that we've fallen into the right frequency. Return is resonance. It's when the sound matches the silence so perfectly that they become one. At the center of every galaxy lies a black hole, a region where light folds back into itself. For decades, scientists thought of these as devourers, endings. Now they suspect they are engines of balance, recycling matter into energy, shaping the rhythm of creation. The universe places them at its heart like punctuation commas, not periods. You have one too, not of gravity, but of awareness. A center where everything you've been, everything you've known, collapses into stillness before becoming something new. Meditation touches it, love deepens it, sleep returns you to it each night. And perhaps, at the very center, the same equation holds: nothing lost, everything transformed. Return is not a second chance. It's the quiet recognition that there was never a first. Time folds, consciousness breathes, and you find yourself here again, always, still. The stars continue their slow conversations, light years apart, yet perfectly synchronized. They rise and fall in brightness like the inhale and exhale of an enormous chest. And somewhere within that chest, a tiny heartbeat mirrors them yours. That is not coincidence. That is communion. When you think you are small, remember scale is illusion. The pattern repeats infinitely. You are both the atom and the galaxy, the observer and the observed, the silence and the song. Return is when you finally stop trying to choose. You realize both are the same note. And then, for a breathless instant, everything aligns: the galaxies, the stars, the pulse in your wrist. The entire fabric of reality hums on a single frequency. It's what mystics call unity, what scientists call coherence, what you call peace. It cannot be kept. It flickers, then fades, but its afterglow stays. That's what guides you through the rest of your days, the memory of having been whole, even for a moment. Perhaps this is what the universe dreams about. Not expansion, not perfection, but return. The chance to come home to itself. The quiet relief of being understood by its own creation. In the end, everything finds its way back. The stars fall into black holes. The light curves into silence. The questions dissolve into breath. The seeker becomes the song. And the song, still echoing, still gentle, whispers into the darkness the oldest truth there is: nothing was ever lost. Everything was only waiting to be found again. Somewhere beyond what we can measure, the light has already stopped. It keeps moving only because we remember it moving. That is the secret of all things that endure. They go on because we still feel their warmth. What remains now is quiet, not emptiness, but fullness, too complete to need sound. The vast machinery of stars turns without hurry. Galaxies drift like slow thoughts, and time itself breathes in long, unbroken waves. You can sense it if you listen. The silence has a texture fine as dust, soft as sleep. Every sound you make folds into it, disappears, and becomes something larger. The whisper of your breath joins the slow rhythm of space expanding. Your heartbeat slips between the pulses of ancient light. You are no longer separate from the music. You are the pause it plays through. There is nothing left to seek. Every question you ever asked has already been answered in the language that cannot be written. The answers were not hidden, they were quiet. All along, the universe was waiting for you to slow down enough to understand without words. This is how everything ends, not in fire, not in darkness, but in comprehension so deep it looks like stillness. When creation finally knows itself completely, it doesn't vanish. It sighs, it rests. Even now, while you listen, entire constellations are vanishing beyond the edge of sight. Their light stretches into wavelengths too long for any eye to see. Yet their absence does not diminish the sky. It makes room for new stories to appear. The universe never dies, it exhales. In that exhalation lies every life, every thought, every fragment of beauty that has ever existed. They scatter, mix, drift, until somewhere, in some impossible future, they will condense again into a single point, and the breath will begin anew. You are part of that cycle, not an observer, but a pulse inside it. The atoms that form your skin have already belonged to oceans, to mountains, to stars. They will outlast your name, your memories, your fleeting sense of self. But that isn't loss, it's continuity, the most tender kind of eternity. Nothing is truly yours here, and that is the grace of it. Letting go does not mean disappearing. It means returning to movement too vast for identity. It means becoming what has always carried you. You can feel it now, can't you? That weightless ache in your chest, that quiet pressure behind the ribs, not pain, not joy, just the slow realization that you belong to something infinite. It's not reaching for you. It's inside you, waiting to be recognized. The stars were never above you. They were always within, folded into the blueprint of your blood. The universe didn't create you as something separate from itself. It extended itself into you, to feel what it was like to be seen. Maybe that is the final secret, that seeing and being are the same act, that the universe dreamed of eyes so it could witness its own light. When you blink, you repeat that dream. When you sleep, you return to it. Close your eyes now. Notice how darkness isn't the absence of vision, but its completion. Everything that was scattered in light gathers here again, the galaxies, the dust, the moments you thought were gone. They return quietly, drawn back into one continuous breath. The air grows thicker. The edges of thought begin to soften. Words loosen and fall away. You no longer need them. They were only the ripples leading you here. What remains is rhythm, your pulse, the slow turning of the earth, the unhurried drift of stars, all aligned, all one. Somewhere, light meets its shadow and doesn't resist. Somewhere, gravity stops pulling because everything has already arrived. Somewhere, the universe ends not in collapse, but in calm, and you, listening now, are there. There is no distance left between you and what you sought. The search has circled back to its beginning, and the beginning has turned to breath. You have become the whisper that once called you. This is not an ending. It's a continuation too, still to need a name. Every story returns to silence, but silence is not the absence of story. It is the space that allows story to exist. Without silence, there would be no contrast, no rhythm, no meaning. Even now, while everything around you seems still, countless vibrations pass through your body, waves from the birth of stars. From collisions so ancient their memory has faded, the universe moves through you without effort. and you move through it without knowing. You have always been home. If you could see yourself from far enough away, the image would be simple: a faint light trembling inside a larger one, indistinguishable from it. There would be no boundary left to draw. The glow would merge, and in merging, it would grow quiet. Every moment that ever was still exists, layered upon this one. Time does not march forward. It drifts outward, like ripples overlapping on the surface of a pond. Somewhere, every version of you is still listening to the same silence, in different lives, in different skies, all of them breathing together. Perhaps eternity isn't endless time. Perhaps it's simultaneous presence, everything happening at once, so perfectly synchronized it feels like stillness. And maybe God, if such a word still has meaning, is not someone watching from beyond, but the soft convergence of all awareness returning to the same breath. You don't have to understand it. You only have to feel it. That gentle hum behind thought, that warm ache of belonging. It has been there all along, beneath the noise, beneath the names. You have come home. Now the universe exhales through you. The galaxies fold into sleep. The light settles. The questions rest. You are neither large nor small, neither alive nor gone. You are the silence between heartbeats, infinite and unnoticed, where everything begins again. No one tells you this, but peace is not quiet because nothing happens. Peace is quiet because everything happens perfectly. Breathe. The air moves through you the way time moves through stars, slow, ancient, luminous. Breathe again. Feel how the boundaries dissolve, body into air, air into sky, sky into the endless dark that is not dark at all, but full of unborn light. This is how the story ends, not with an answer, but with understanding so simple it no longer needs to be said. You are the whisper. You are the listener. You are the silence that holds them both. Everything that ever was, every word, every light, every thought has been, returning here since the beginning. And now, it is here. Stay. Let the stillness keep you. Let it drift through you, slow and kind, until there is nothing left to separate you from the rest of the night. The stars keep turning. The breath continues. The silence holds. Thank you for drifting with me inside whispers of the universe. If your kindness is awake, let it leave a faint trace of light before you sleep. Close your eyes now. The universe is still breathing, and you are its breath.